MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So today we are starting off a new book by John Maxwell, which is Winning with People. This is a book I haven't had a chance to get to read yet, so I'm pretty excited to go through it, and I realize the chapters are short and there's a lot of chapters. So this will be a fun one to go through. So these shows might be a tad bit shorter than usual, but it's still going to be some good information. So, which is funny because I was actually watching some of his seminars, and he talked about when he first started writing books, how a lady came up and he's like, "Oh, what book is your favorite?" And she's like, "Oh, I like this one." He's like, "Why?" He's like, "That was one of my first books." He's like, "It was poorly written. It didn't have like categories. It didn't necessarily have chapters. There was run-on sentences." She's like, "Well, that's why I like it. The chapters are so short." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So I think this is one of those books. So when I first looked at it, and I'm like, I bet you this is one of those, because he's written so many. So that was kind of funny. I actually went into Jeff's office last night, and I'm like, "Was this one of the first ones?" He's like, "Yep." But the information is still really, really good. So our people skills determine our potential and success, and your professional skills with people are just as important as your personal skills. So in life, the skills you use and the people that you choose to make will make or break you. And we've talked about this even with previous books. It's very important. Even when we repeat things so many times, the only reason we keep repeating these things is because they're that important. And sometimes you need to hear it repeatedly before it actually sinks in. So John has divided the people principles in this book to 5 questions we must ask ourselves to win with people. So number 1 is readiness. Are you prepared for relationships? Number 2, connection. Are we willing to focus on another? Number 3, trust. Can we build mutual trust? Number 4, investment. Are we willing to invest in others? And synergy. Can we create a win-win relationship? So learn and practice these principles, and you're going to be able to build really nice, healthy, effective, and fulfilling relationships. Which is something I find is a lack of these days. If you look around 50 years ago, what were the families like on television? Like, most people are learning how to have relationships and how the family unit is supposed to function by watching TV now. And if you were to go back 50 years ago, or what's a TV show that I remember that's older? I don't want to say old, but older, like the Brady Bunch. The difference between the Brady Bunch and then what's on TV now. It's very different. So those are the things that people are learning right now, and most people don't have those functional relationships in their family, so they don't know how to have a functional relationship now. So these are things that you need to learn to be able to have those actually close functional relationships. So we're going to go over the first question, which is the readiness question. Are we prepared for these? Readiness. It says readiness. I had to look at that twice too. I was like, readiness. Okay. So the most useful person in the world today is the man or woman who knows how to get along with other people, and the human relations is the most important science in living. So that was by Stanley Allen. And some people should be working on their emotional readiness, which is basically the ability to build a healthy relationship. So not everyone has the skills to initiate, build, and sustain good, healthy relationships, but many people grow up in dysfunctional households, which is what we already went over. So it takes relationally healthy people to build great relationships, and it all starts here in recognizing, what do I need to work on? So here are some fundamental building blocks that make people ready for relationships. Number 1, the lens principle. Who we are determines how we see others. Number 2, the mirror principle. The first person we must examine is ourselves. The pain principle. Hurt people like to hurt people. The hammer principle. Never use the hammer to swat a fly off of someone's head. And the elevator principle. We can lift people up or take people down in our relationships. So anyone missing these essential components will be prepared for the relationships, but this will also, if you're missing any of these, this is also going to damage a lot of your relationships. So the first part that we're going to be going over is going to be the lens principle. So this is kind of the introduction to the book today. But Jeff, what would you like to add?
So Winning with People, John Maxwell said, after going through Dale Carnegie's courses and reading Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is basically the classic and standard in the industry when it comes to winning with people and working with people, John said he wanted to break it down even more. Because that book was written so long ago, for me, it's actually harder to read than John's book. Just because of the way that it's laid out and some of the, I would say, the words and the sentences and the way that they put together. But there are basics to winning with people, you know, remembering people's name, eye contact, talking to people about what they want to talk about, not what you want to talk about. Getting people to actually feel like they're making the decision on what's going on and they're coming up with the ideas. So kind of compliments and giving support to what they do. These are just part of the lessons that are sitting inside of Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. What I like about what John's done with this book is he's broken it down into these subcategories of like, here's all the, you know, kind of top 1%er things that if you learn, you have the ability to influence people better. You have the ability to influence people faster, to be able to make that connection. Now, the unfortunate part is this can be used for good and bad, right? You know, some people will use it for the wrong reason. Some people will use it for their gain only. And one thing that I learned is, you know, through working in business is you have to look at every situation and say, you know, is this good for the other person? Is this good for you? And is this good for, you know, the greater good and the long term? Tony Robbins talks about experiences that you can have. He goes, where most people fail in life is because the experience is good for them, but it's not necessarily good for the people around them, and it's not good for the overall, but we find ourselves kind of doing the things that make us feel good, but don't necessarily, and, you know, a prime example is, you know, sitting and we start talking and we're expressing ourselves and we don't shut up. And, you know, the other person has actually been going through something or had something go on. And if you've ever done this before, I can raise both hands. You stop and be like, hey, you're not listening to me. They're like, yeah, you know, somebody just passed away, or, you know, an animal, you know, is having this problem. And they're not hearing a word you're saying, but it's all about you. So some of the lessons. One lesson in particular in the book that we'll get to in a couple days, one chapter. I mean, it was probably the hardest hitting chapter that I can think of, and there's so many instances. So we're going to be able to give you some examples. The book is very cool. If you want to become a better recruiter, if you want to become a better team builder, if you want to become, you know, I would say, you know, better admired and have more people come to you and have better relationships, mastering the lessons in this book will be huge. So, I mean, this is a short one today, but we just wanted to give you kind of a quick introduction to what's going on, and then we're going to start tomorrow with the first principle.
Sounds good. So if you guys, we're going to be taking notes on each chapter. So if you guys are just joining us, I'll be putting a link in the comments below. So that way you can subscribe to the email, and we're going to be sending out those notes every single day for each chapter. Also, if you guys would like to follow us on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel. So if there's a book that we've already gone over and you would like to go back to it, you'll be able to find it. Because between Jeff and I and how much stuff we post, if it's been a month or two, you likely won't find it again. we post that much. So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow.